Hi, everybody. My name is Christopher Paul Carey. I am the Vice President of Publishing at Edgar Burroughs Incorporated, and today I have Mike Wolfer, the author of The Land That Time Forgot, Fortress Primeval, which is, at the time of this recording, about to come out. Hasn't quite come out yet. And so we're going to talk to Mike about his novel. Mike's known to a lot of ERB fans. He's worked a lot on the Edgar Rice Burroughs comics for the past several years. You can see a lot of the books that he's edited in the background
Yeah,
here,
here too.
the artwork behind me. So very excited. It's an amazing novel, I have to say. It's a
Oh,
really
geez.
great novel. It doesn't require any knowledge of canon, and yet it's got the essence of the land that time forgot. How did you first encounter Edgar Rice Burroughs, and why is the land that time forgot, as I know it is, your favorite series?
Back in the old days, back in the old days when there was bookstores, I used to see the Burroughs books, the paperbacks, on the racks, and I used to just marvel at the cover art and stuff, but I never picked any up. And it was in 1974 when the movie was coming out, Kevin Conner's Land That Time Forgot, and I started seeing the pre-publicity or the publicity coming out for the upcoming movie, and I was like, oh, that's a book. I should find that, and I did find it, and of course, it had the movie poster art
Mhm.
was on the cover of that book. So I picked it up, I read it, I loved it, and I was hooked. That like that's all it took.
So this novel is set before the events of the original trilogy in
Yeah.
the 1830s. And so it had, there's a lot of good history in this. It feels very authentic to me
Hmm.
as I'm reading it. What kind of historical research did you have to undertake to write the
Oh, I
novel?
I did a ton of research because
Yeah.
there was a lot going on in the world, in Europe particularly at the time. Um, it was just the more I read about what was happening, uh, the more confusing it got. There was so much going on, and I thought that really played into the plot of the novel. The different negotiations that were going on between nations and the different treaties and different um, sort of backhanded deals that were that were happening. It all just played in perfectly to the plot. So,
Talk a little bit about, we found that anomalous, you pointed out the
oh
anomalous
yeah,
date
yeah.
for Captain Cook's voyage that's in the original
Uh,
novel.
in The Land That Time Forgot, the first novel, von Schoenvorts is talking to Bowen Tyler, and he mentions, when they encounter the island, they're like, there was an explorer named Caproni, and he followed Captain Cook's route in 1721, like around 1721. Well, Captain Cook, his first voyage wasn't until 1768. So we were like 21, that doesn't work. What happened here? And that's where you came in.
Yeah. So I went back and, fortunately I have access to the archives at Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, and I found Edgar Rice Burroughs' worksheet for The Land That Time Forgot. And sure enough, he had originally had a typo on his worksheet, and he corrected it and changed it to 1781.
81, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the mystery. And so
Yeah.
it was probably a typo. We don't have the original manuscript access to that right now, but it was probably a typo that went in from his notes into the original manuscript and went
Hmm.
into every edition of it, and then he caught it later and corrected it, but it never went into the books for
Yeah.
whatever reason. We don't know exactly the history, but it's clear he's got it penciled in his handwriting. He changed the two to an eight.
But you did correct it,
Yeah.
like a year or two ago with the Savage Epics.
Yeah,
Savage Epics?
Savage
Yeah.
Epics Omnibus
Yeah.
contains The Land That Time Forgot in it, and we made that correction in
Um,
it. So this is Caspak, The Land That Time Forgot, this
mhm.
lost island continent in the Pacific Antarctic area. He's kind of vague about exactly where it is,
Right.
but there's going to be dinosaurs on Caspak.
Yeah.
So what kind of dinosaurs can we expect to meet in your novel?
Thing. When I was writing it, I didn't want it to I didn't want it to sound like there was a 21st century narrator. So I didn't even want to use, and I don't, as you noted, I don't even use the word dinosaur because the
Yeah.
phrase hadn't been coined yet, or the word hadn't been coined yet. Um, so the descriptions, I give descriptions of the various dinosaurs, but I don't call them what they are, what we know them today,
Hmm.
the names we have today, the scientific names. So it's we're seeing this story through the eyes of the characters in 1836. Marina Caproni, there's flying creatures. She describes them as dragons because, I mean,
Yeah,
that's to her, they're dragons. Well,
yeah,
modern readers know they're pterosaurs, they're
yeah.
pterodactyls, pteranodons, but so I leave out the scientific terms, and the reader can read it and go, oh, oh, four legs, three horns. It's a triceratops. I know what
Right.
that is, but they don't have names for them. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
makes it kind of fun.
yeah. So just set the novel up a bit for our viewers. What's the premise?
Okay. So basically, back in 1781, Captain Enzio Caproni, made a voyage. He followed the route of Captain Cook, and he discovered this strange continent that shouldn't exist. It was surrounded by sheer cliffs that rose like hundreds of feet into the air. There was nowhere to land. There was no way to see what's on this island or at the top of it, because it looks like, from sea level, it looks like a plateau. They circled the island and they couldn't find any way in. And he went back to Sicily, and everybody thought he was nuts, basically, right? So his grandson, Fausto Caproni, he is now a sea captain, and he wants to vindicate his grandfather. He wants to make a return voyage to the general area, find that continent to prove that his grandfather was not nuts. They go, they find the island, the running and the screaming commences. It's just like super action packed, isn't it? I mean, you've read
It
it.
is.
Like
It's pretty
so much
nonstop.
going on.
Yeah, once they get to the island in particular, it's just nonstop
Yeah,
action. But even
yeah.
before they get to the island, there's pirates.
There's even pirates.
Killer.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but okay, so the main characters in the novel are brother and sister, but they have
yeah.
quite different personalities and motivations.
Yes,
Who are they, and what makes each of them tick?
right. Fausto Caproni and Marina Caproni. Marina is 2 years older than Fausto, and she's um, she's a spitfire. I don't know. She's very headstrong. She's very opinionated. She's been living her whole life as was dictated by society at the time, but she's kind of like, man, she's been wedged into this little box, and she doesn't want to be in that box, but she doesn't even realize that there can be more out there for her. So that's her. Fausto, on the other hand, Faust, he means well. He's got grand plans and schemes, and he's got a really good heart. Um, he doesn't quite always think things through the way he should, much to Marina's chagrin. She's always kind of looking over the little brother, and that's one of the reasons she goes on the voyage, because she's like, you know, he's going to be gone for a while. What kind of trouble he's going to get into? I need to go along and just keep an eye on him. But through the course of the novel, both of the characters grow and change, and they both grow into who they should be or wish they could be. And I think that's,
Yeah.
the growth that they experience, I think is kind of charming.
Yeah, it's
No,
very well done, very well executed, I think.
thank you. Thank you.
Because it's not simplistic, because even before they become who they are, you can see the glimmers of certain strengths along with their
Yeah.
weaknesses. Like even Fausto, when he's organizing the expedition, I think he
Hmm.
surprises his sister in that he's able
Yeah.
to pull off a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really thought you handled that well. Moving on, there's also a bonus story in the novel.
Oh, oh yeah.
So It's a Weird Worlds Voyage into Terror. Weird Worlds was originally a 7-issue comic book anthology series that ran from 1972 to 1973, published by DC Comics back in the day.
The whole thing with Weird Worlds, it all springs from your plot outline for Pellucidar Across Savage Seas, which originally that you were planning out as a novel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I got a hold of that. Chris said, "Hey, I have this great story that might be cool as a graphic novel," and I read it and I was like blown away. It is so much fun, and eventually it did see print. And there were some secondary characters in that, in order for the characters to get to Pellucidar, they needed a vehicle, and Chris came up with this vehicle called the Favonia. The characters on that ship kind of, even though they were minor characters, they kind of, I don't know, demanded that, that we see more of them.
yeah.
And so when we're talking about, reviving Weird Worlds, I'm like, man, we should make it about the Favonia and the Favonia crew, and to really explore all of them individually, but also just charge into the great unknown and do some crazy wild stuff. And that's, I mean, when you read this Voyage into Terror, you're going to see that it's crazy wild stuff.
The characters are like quite unique, and you do have like a whole cast of characters too. This is an ensemble, an ensemble type story,
Right.
where you're going to have a lot of different viewpoints. There, not everyone's going to get along. But there's some major characters that I really liked. I really enjoy Captain Conover, Douglas Conover.
Yeah.
He's a very rough and tumble character.
Yeah.
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 So
yeah, he's rough around the edges, and he just says it like it needs to be said, and he's a great character. And also too, we bring in another character from one of the graphic novels that we did, Jane Porter and the City of Fire. That also featured the Favonia and the Favonia crew. And so this is not a direct sequel to that, and you don't have to have read the graphic novel in order to understand this story. Both Weird Worlds and Fortress Primeval were both written very, very specifically to appeal to new readers. So they're both absolutely firmly entrenched in Burroughs canon.
Yeah.
And believe me, this thing has been picked apart to make sure it's accurate by more than one scholar. So we're not changing anything. We're just adding to what's already there. So it was fun to loop Weird Worlds into Jane Porter and the City of Fire, and which also loops into the previous Pellucidar Across Savage Seas series.
We should talk about just like the premise of it is this Favonia in this story. It goes on its first kind of its maiden errant voyage. It's not expecting to go somewhere, but it ends up going to a strange angle of existence. And
in Voyage into Terror, they're like, okay, we have it all figured out now.
Yeah,
let's make another trip. This time we know where we're going. We know what to do. We know how it's going to work. Guess what? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't.
So I've already got you working on some new projects.
Yes.
Without going into detail and necessarily naming them, would you like to give our viewers a hint of what's coming up from you?
I'm writing some stuff that I can't tell you what it is. I mean, what can I say?
I mean, you can say that you're that this will not be the last of Land That Time Forgot. Let's just say, or Weird Worlds.
Right. Actually, both stories, Fortress Primeval and the Weird Worlds backup story, they are both self-contained, and you can read them and be happy with what you read. But they are open-ended, both of them, especially Weird Worlds. Oh my God. When you guys get to the end of the Weird World story, you're going to say, darn you, Mike Wolfer. But
Yeah.
yes, we're
You'll,
working on more.
yeah. You'll have readers will have some idea of where it's going um,
Hmm. Yep.
when they get to the end of Weird World's
Yep.
Voyage into Terror.
Yep.
So so the book is available in paperback and
Aha!
hardcover
Or hardcover.
and a collector's edition with a signed bookplate and exclusive trading cards if you get it from Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated. Um, that's edgarriceburroughs.com. It will be available also on Kindle. Eventually, it'll be coming out as an audiobook. There'll be a slight delay of a few months before that comes out on audio. But I really enjoyed this. To me, this is the one that like anybody can pick it up. You don't have to have
Yeah.
any background in the canon, and yet if you
Yeah.
do have a background with the canon, you'll enjoy it just the same because it's all there. It's just it's made easy for new people coming in, and it's a good.
Right.
I mean,
I wanted this to be like my first experience I had when I
yeah,
picked up that paperback of
yeah,
The Land That Time Forgot. I didn't need anything else except that. And it
yeah,
told me everything. And this book does the same thing.
yeah,
You don't have to have read anything else. If you have, there may be a few instances where you say, oh, you know what? But you don't have to, you
yeah.
know?
And it really is, just to emphasize what we said before, it really is jam-packed with adventure and action,
There's a lot.
non-stop. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's like a movie. It feels very
Mm,
cinematic,
mhm.
and yet there's good character depth to it and stuff like that. So I and the historical
Thank you.
background and all. So I can't recommend it enough. Hope everyone checks it out. Um, and that's it for us today. Try to
All
keep it
right.
short. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be seeing you later.
All right. Thank you.